When the email arrived, Elena almost deleted it by accident. She had been scrolling through yet another long chain of office chatter, memos about budget readjustments, schedule confirmations, half-hearted greetings forced by corporate camaraderie, when the subject caught her eye only because it was written in bold letters. Mandatory company gala, final lineup announced. She remembered the gala from last year. It was a tedious evening of forced smiles, polite claps, and speeches that felt like carefully stitched quilts of words meant to sound meaningful but were really hollow. But this year, she was new, not to the company, but to that particular branch, and she didn't yet know what role she might be expected to play in their rigid social hierarchy. As she skimmed through the message, she paused near the end. Department E has not submitted a performance or contribution for the entertainment portion of the evening. One representative must volunteer. The CFO insists all departments participate. A murmur was already stirring across the rows of cubicles. People were whispering, chuckling, pretending not to make eye contact as the department manager's gaze swept the room. It wasn't long before someone said, loudly enough to carry, "What about Elena?" The chuckles rose, just a shade too loud to be friendly. It had taken only one moment, one lunch break, one offhand comment, for her coworkers to learn she used to play piano. She hadn't elaborated, she hadn't wanted to. It was something she kept tucked away in a part of her heart that was still tender. But someone had asked what hobbies people used to have when they were younger, and she had answered without thinking. Now it was coming back to bite her. "Yeah," another voice chimed in, this one with a mocking lilt, "I heard she used to be some kind of prodigy." Elena felt her stomach twist, but she smiled politely. It was a long time ago. The manager clapped his hands once, decisively. "Great, then it's settled." She started to protest. "I haven't." "Perfect," he said, already moving on to the next topic. And that was that. The days that followed blurred together, but inside, Elena was unraveling. She hadn't touched a piano in 6 years. Not since the night her mother died. Her mother had been a pianist, not famous, not widely recognized, but deeply, profoundly devoted to music. For her, music was not something you performed, it was something you lived inside. She used to say that the piano had its own voice, its own temperament, its own soul. And if you listened, truly listened, it would tell you what it needed. Her mother taught Elena to listen. They used to play together for hours. Sometimes classical, sometimes improvisations that drifted on for minutes, sometimes only wandering notes that never hardened into a real melody. Those were the sessions that felt like prayer, gentle, unhurried, honest. But after her mother passed, after the long hospital room nights, after the funeral, after the piano sat untouched in the living room like a tombstone, Elena couldn't bear to sit at the keys again. The silence of not playing became its own grief. And eventually, she simply stopped speaking about it. Until now. The night of the gala came faster than she expected. The ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers and meticulously arranged flower centerpieces. A string quartet played polite background music that was technically perfect and emotionally empty. People laughed loudly at humor that was not funny, clapped politely at speeches that said nothing, and complimented each other's outfits as though rehearsing lines in a play. And at the center of it all was the man everyone whispered about from a distance, the CEO, Adrian Caldwell. He was one of those names that circulated in business magazines and investor news channels. Sharp, unshakable, rumored to have grown up with nothing and built everything with his own hands. He had the kind of presence that made people straighten their posture when he entered the room. They said he never cried, never wavered, never softened. Elena tried not to look at him. The performances began. A group did a cringe-worthy synchronized dance. Someone recited a comedic poem. Another attempted magic tricks that mostly failed. The audience clapped politely, but the laughter was brittle. Then her name was called. From Department E, Elena Morgan. There was a smattering of applause, lazy and unexpectant. She stepped onto the stage, hands trembling. A glossy black grand piano sat under a pool of warm light. It looked much too elegant, much too grand, much too alive. Her vision blurred for a moment. "I can't do this." But then, unexpectedly, she remembered her mother's voice. "Listen, don't think, listen." She sat. The room fell quiet. She placed her fingers on the keys. For a long moment, she didn't move. People shifted impatiently. Somewhere, someone whispered. Maybe she forgot how. And then, she began. Not with a well-known piece. Not with something flashy or impressive. Not something practiced, because she had nothing prepared. She played Memory, soft, trembling, hesitant at first. A melody her mother used to play late in the evening when the world felt heavy. One that wrapped around you like warm arms and whispered, "It's okay to hurt. Just breathe." The notes spilled from her like a confession. They were not perfect. They wavered. They cracked. They trembled with the weight of all the years she had locked them away. But they were alive. Conversation stopped. Glasses lowered. Even the staff paused in mid-step. The melody grew, fuller, warmer, slowly unfolding into something deeper. There was grief in it, yes, but also love, so much love it ached. It was the sound of remembering someone you didn't want to forget. Her fingers moved with instinct, memory guiding them more surely than thought ever could. She felt tears slipping down her cheeks, but she did not stop. When the final chord lingered into silence, it was as though the air itself was holding its breath. For a moment, no one moved. Then someone exhaled, shakily. And then, softly, slowly, the applause began. Not polite this time, real, full, human. Elena bowed her head, dazed, but then she noticed someone standing. The CEO, Adrian Caldwell. He stood very still, one hand pressed lightly against his mouth, his eyes shining, not glossy, not nearly, but fully wet. And then, a tear fell. The billionaire who never cried, cried. After the gala, she tried to slip away quietly. Her heart was still too raw, too exposed. She just wanted to breathe, to recover. But footsteps followed. Elena. She turned. Adrian Caldwell stood just a few steps behind her. Up close, he looked somehow younger than in the company photos, less polished, less untouchable. "That piece," he said quietly, "what was it?" She swallowed. "Something my mother used to play." He nodded slowly, absorbing the words. "My mother, before she passed, used to hum something very similar. I hadn't heard anything like it in years." There was a long silence. "When you played," he continued, "it felt like the room stopped being a ballroom." His voice caught, just barely. It felt like home. Her eyes widened. He looked away, embarrassed, not of the emotion itself, but of being witnessed in it. Then his voice softened again. "Thank you. Just that. Thank you. Sincere. Quiet. Real." Before she could respond, he asked, "Do you still play?" She hesitated. "I stopped. For a long time." He nodded, understanding without needing explanation. "Would you consider playing again?" He asked, not as a boss, not as a billionaire, but as someone who knew what grief sounded like. "Not for the company, for yourself." Her throat tightened. I think I might." He smiled, not the corporate smile, but a small, gentle one. "Good. She left the gala with empty hands, but not with an empty heart. Something had shifted, something had loosened, something had begun to heal. The piano was no longer a tomb. It was a voice, and she was ready to listen again.